We did that. We have done that. Okay? During our period. Grand strategy, it's possible. Possibility thinking. Grand strategy. That's where a lot of this comes from. This comes from China thousands of years ago and during the last century. And Chairman Mao elevated it because he put a few new things in it. On guerrilla warfare. The Tao Te Ching didn't have a lot on guerrilla warfare because the Chinese were never fighting a guerrilla war. They was fighting in those days, thousands of years ago. You got to remember, China developed when the people was living in the caves of Europe. China was already popping firecrackers and doing everything. They was already on the road. It's the oldest, one of the oldest civilizations in the world. And it is the oldest continuous grand, scale. Like they had the Fertile Crescent and they had this, that, and another. But China is 4,000 or 5,000 years old. They say 5,000. And it's on an upsurge. An upsurge because they had to go through a period of, I don't know how I got on this, let me get back on. The period of humiliation 100 years ago. This is the celebration of the Chinese Communist Party. It was formed in 1921. So they have big celebrations over there right now. People over here don't do it. And they're celebrating a lot of things that have happened in that 100 years. Okay, because they got a vision for the next 100 years. And for, happy to say, they've reached all their goals. They had a goal for 2025 that there would be no more poverty. Guess what? They didn't already knock that over. That don't mean that ain't nobody poor. But can you imagine America, the great America, they're talking about injustice and this, that, and other in China. In China, you can walk down the street with money hanging out of your pocket and nobody will bother you. And nobody has to worry about, it's almost crime-free. Compared to here, Compared to here, it is crime-free. And all the innovation, all the other things that people should do for a society, they're doing it. Because they don't have a Congress of idiots like they do here. I'm telling you, a Congress of idiots. Okay, I don't want to talk about these people. We're going to try to help them. We always wanted to help them. And if you think that we just started, see, everybody, they have been listening to what we've been talking about over the decades. We talked about the Mandela effect. Does anybody remember that? The Mandela effect, we talked about it. Here's something from 10 years ago. Declaration of Peace. They always talk about Declaration of War. I don't know if anybody remembers. Declaration of Peace. That's what we're talking about here. Okay. East Oakland, Azad. East Oakland, Azad. Azad means liberated or free. Everybody in Oakland, 2011, this is 3 years after the fitness started, they're thinking, oh my God, look what's happening to poor East Oakland. That ain't true. That stuff is happening. But as we read along, you'll figure out that you don't let other people control and manage your life. You control it. Let's see. Heed me by calculating the advantages and reinforce them by directing outwardly. Those who direct follow the advantages and adjust their formula. Those who strategize use the Tao of paradox. Thus, when able to appear unable. When employed, they appear useless. This is deception. The management of deception. You walk with a crutch, oh, I can't walk or something. Psychological, it makes the guy feel like he can't lose. When close, they appear distant. You can find the same kind of writings in Najul Balagha, when Imam Ali tells the people about a liar. He says, a liar makes things that are near look way off, right? And the things that are near, he makes them, things that are far off, he makes them look real close. Oh, we're going to get some money tomorrow. And so everybody's all cheered up. But freedom, ooh, that's way off. The freedom is right around the corner, because there's certain areas been liberated, but he ain't going to tell you. Because he want to make things that are very near look like they are impossible to get there. It's a long way off, so you give up. And he make things that are impossible and far off look, oh, they're right around the corner. All you got to do is buck dance a little bit with boss man. Boy, he'll fix you up. That's what they do, right? The Negroes, that's exactly what they do. They lure through advantages and take control through confusion. I don't know if I have the CD here, but it's called Luring Deep. That is, that you draw the enemy into your trap. It's called lure in deep, and you lure them in through various mechanisms. We've used all of those mechanisms. We still use them right now. But we're evolving. See, evolution means we can't stay where we are, because the world is not staying where it is. The world is moving at breakneck speed, right? And it's changing so fast. It's not changing, but things are getting worse and worse and worse, right? Now you got to remember scriptural language. This is not the first time this happened, but this is different time. Now it's things that humanity and life would not survive on earth as we know it if these things keep going. Right? If they keep melting the ice, it'll look like water world after a while. Yeah, it will. Yeah. If people will make the smoke and that nice air we see out there, it may be a little smoky, but it ain't nothing compared to what it could be. And the oceans, anyway. So, the Tao of paradox means that you have to, in situational positioning, situational management, situational leadership, right? You have to adjust some things. When complete, they appear to prepare. When forceful, they appear evasive. When When angry, they appear to submit. When proud, they appear to be humble. When comfortable, they appear to toil. When attacked, they appear separated. In other words, they fool you into attacking them, and they're fully united. And they might do like Arabs used to do in the old days. They would break out running. They'd go up and they'd fight these big Roman or Byzantium armies. It was heavy laden up the ark. Can you imagine the shields that they carried, them doggone things? And the helmets. All that stuff is made out of metal. Then they get them in the hot desert, around that desert. And they carrying all of that stuff. And the Arabs don't carry all that stuff. They got horses and everything. So they come up and woo, 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 yeah, da, 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 da. And then they break out running. And you run after them. Can you imagine how tired you're going to get chasing them? And they on the horses and all of that. And up ahead, the dust, you can imagine the dust is going everywhere. They're going up and they fanning around. And all of a sudden, they look up. This was a standard tactic. Everybody should have, after the 10th time, they should have known to watch some arrows before they going to do this. They never learned. The dummies kept on chasing. And they would go way up there, and then they would estimate how far they are, and then they would start fanning out around around the people. Pretty soon they got them surrounded and tired too. They tired. Can you imagine all that stuff they carried? Running and chasing, just a spear weighed a half a ton, Anyway, so the paradox is to fool people. To fool people. Like, now we have better than the Chinese. We know, we studied our old people, the old Negro. The Negro was slick. Why? Because he had to use what he had, and he had less than the Chinese generals had fighting each other. Right? He had less. So he's got to be smarter, because he ain't got nothing. So he's got to soothe old boss man. If he want to get something, he got to smooth the old boss man. Don't worry. So this stuff about appearing humble and appearing, you just melt into the environment. Boss man. Boss man, you're a good white man, boss man. They don't know that, but I know you're a good white man. And you're good because you're good, it ain't that. And so now, you know them old mules I got here plowing with or nothing. And you got that new tractor, 1950 John Deere tractor. And you got a 1950 Chevy truck. And I got mules, Old John, Old Fox, they had names, all the big old mules. And because I used to, I could sit up on them when my father was plowing, but the next year, my brother who was 19 was plowing on a tractor. And my father was using Boss Man, Big Boss Man, the owner of the whole town. His 1950 Chevrolet truck. Right?
Did he have a license?
Did he have a license? I don't think he even needed a license in Arkansas in 1950. See, the people didn't have all that paperwork. I'm born in 1945, and my birth certificate, February 22nd is when I was born, but the doctor filled out mine. It says on my birth certificate born to Some weeks ago it's March 2nd or something like that. You know, because who was born in a hospital? Everybody now is born in a hospital. There's a doctor there and all of that. Ain't nobody, I ain't even knew nobody was born in a hospital. I had to look here. I think my niece, that was the first one born in California, she was born in a hospital. I don't know nobody else born in no hospital that was my age. Black. They didn't even have birth certificates. Not to change the subject, but when I got my first passport, like in 1970, you didn't need all of these IDs and stuff. You could take somebody with you to the passport office, and they hold up their hand, they swear, yeah, he was born. That's what you had. Did anybody read all the paper? You didn't have to have, you got now, you got to, ain't nobody had them. White folks didn't have them. You know, Negroes definitely didn't have them. Like birth certificates. That's why all the old white people a few years ago, that was in the 80s and 90s, they couldn't get a lot of stuff because they didn't have birth certificates. The people said, you can't make, that ain't no way to treat nobody. So they came up with some laws for them. Because when they were born in Oklahoma, Mississippi, and all that, they had no, you know, he was born out in the country. And a doctor, who was that? First of all, he didn't know, he couldn't help you much anyway. And, you know, okay, let's speed up. So, the 9 variations and tactics are based on the advantages and disadvantages that occur during conflict. A strategy unfolds as the strategy unfolds. Advantages give a strategy credibility, but the disadvantages of the opponent give the strategy its edge. The disadvantages of the opponent give the strategy its edge. Brilliant leadership have not only the ability to recognize their opponent's disadvantages, their disorder, confusion, weariness, lack of interest, unpreparedness, and miscalculations, but they are able to vary the strategy to capitalize on them. Sun Tzu's or Lao Tzu's believe that once a challenge has been executed, skillful leaders must vary their tactics. They must not allow a controlled strategy to inhibit creative counter movement. Nor should commands from those at a distance interfere with spontaneous maneuverings in the immediate situation. He insisted that one's tactics must change along with the situation, and furthermore, that some situations will develop and should not be confronted at all. Some things happen, you don't want to confront them. Does anybody remember the videos that I gave with blood streaming down the head, and my sons and this crew, they were there, and you could tell by the dialogue that they wanted to do something right then. And I was all yelling at them, stand down. If you can't, stay out of my business. I know what I'm doing. I got this covered. And I was firm on that, right? Anybody remember that? Hold it. Y'all stay out of my business. Because they're looking at me and they're thinking about their environment. And hey, that's my day. You can't, niggas can't do that. You can't, you know. I would have felt the same way. If somebody did that to my father, there's no way way he could have told me not to do nothing. He couldn't have. I wouldn't have listened. That's why I was speaking so firm with them. Stay out of this business. You don't want to mess nothing up. That was the idea. You stay out of this. Sun Tzu's warned that even if a leader has the skill and excellence to practice the variations that are character flaws common to leaders, that can bring defeat. These flaws include recklessness, excessive caution, a short temper, fastidiousness. You know, that's kind of funny acting, fastidious. And deep personal attachments. You can't be attached too much. That includes family, friends, money, of course, all of that. You can't be attached to it. If you're lucky, you would have outgrown all of those things, because very few people are zahids, zuhud, when they're non-attached. People are attached. They're attached to their house, attached to their car, they're attached to their salary, they're attached to their wife, they're attached to everything. Everybody that I know is attached. I don't know nobody unattached but me. And it's not unnecessary. It's out of decades of training. Decades of training, because they thought this, what they did in Oakland, was going to help them, was going to push it right where they wanted. Why? They had studied me. They had turned my children into tattletales, where they was they didn't do it because they wanted to, but they do it because they was dope fiends and they've been going to prison for 20 years and they don't want to go anymore. So, I can imagine my youngest son telling them that our father don't put up with certain type of things. Why? Because in 1983, when the Negroes was messing with me in the Masjid, one Negro